I just want to say I'm Christina Mitmamamono, and I am an indigenous descendant of the Inca or Quechua peoples from South America. So my heart is with my brothers and sisters here on this mainland, and just thank you for being here and creating that space for them and having that presence be here and present with us. I'm going to introduce Leon Rattler. He's from the Blackfoot Nation as Papa Picani. So, and he's going to be our DJ today, and I'm going to be upstairs running some videos. So, here you are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. We're winging it, you might say, as the performers get ready to come out and do their performance here. We're trying to line up the songs and try to line up the order in which we're going to dance. I know today is a special day across the United States for American Indian people and cultural diversity awareness, you might say, because of the heritage that we were given is still alive and well today, and it's good for us to be recognized. And so today what you're going to take a look at is the traditional dances that we have from the women and also to the men's way of directing. I'm going to start out with Lacey Abrahamson, and I'll let her introduce herself and do the talk as we start out with a prayer. It's our traditional way. And you can remain seated. It's all right for this to happen. Lacey?
Buna. Good morning, everyone. Nananiha, Lacey Abrahamson. Nanuat Naniha, Waipadong. I just introduced myself in my native tongue, which is Akaidika. She's the, Akaidika is where Sacagawea is from, and I'm her great-great-great-grandniece from her brother, Chief Kamiawa. And what I said was, hello, good morning. My name is Lacey Abrahamson. My Indian name is Butterfly. I'm a member of the Shoshone-Bannock tribes. I'm a descendant of the Kavo, Coeur d'Alene, and Spokane tribes. So today, I'm happy to be here to share a little bit of my culture with everyone. And I wanted to share some Native American Sign Language with you. As of 2021, there are 574 different federally recognized tribes in the United States alone. And all of us speak different languages. For example, my tribe for hello says Buna. The Salish people say Wai. The Navajos say Yat'e. The Blackfeet say Oki. So we all speak different languages. What do you guys think how we communicated before we all speak English? Does anybody have any ideas? Correct. Sign language. Yes. So I'm going to share a little bit of sign language with you guys. We'll do the crow. You say shodaji. That's how you say hello. So in sign language, when you greet somebody, you would shake your hand. Shodaji. Shodaji. That's a greeting. So let's see you guys do it. Yeah, ha means yes in my language. So, another one, what's your name? You can ask somebody, what's your name? So, once again, you shake your hand, and then you put your finger across your forehead and bring it down. What's your name? Let's see you guys do it. And I'll answer you. Waipadong. So that's my name, my Nua name, my Indian name. Let's see, another one we could do is, how about, you are looking good. So if you're ever out anywhere and you see somebody you like, you can walk by them and let them know, you are looking good. So let's try it again. You are looking good. So now you know your next pickup line. But yeah, so I appreciate you guys being here. And as Native Americans, we always start our events with a prayer. And I would like to do the Lord's Prayer in sign language for you. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, Lacey. Are you waiting for me? Sorry, I don't know if I have your link. Okay. I'm not sure which link it is. Can you? I have a list, so.
It was. Hi. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
They don't have the music yet.
I have
The Lord's Prayer.
I have two for Jesse, Tanisha, Susie, and Deborah.
The guy in the white shirt has it.
Oh.
Well, we can
Gotcha.
continue with dancing and then maybe do that later. As
Okay,
a
just one
closing prayer.
second.
So, yeah, we'll do it later.
All right.
Okay. Just.
Okay, I believe your music is ready.
Yeah. For Tanisha? Okay. The ads didn't go away. Oh. Just don't yet.
What we're going to do is give them a dance and then have each one of them introduce themselves to you. So you can hear their voice and where they're coming from. And so,
This is Jesse's. I got it.
Before we start, we need to get.
Sorry, Lacey. I don't know the order of this.
Yeah, full home.
Before we start, we need to get lively, people. We need to know that you're out there. We need to know that you like what you see on the dance floor. Make some noise. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise. Come on, here we go.
feet stay in time with the drum, and their bodies tell stories to the music. Story, one of many. They're returning back from a battle. They're very cautious, picking up brush around them. They go down the trail. Yeah, that's the first one off stage is Jesse Eaglespeaker. The second is Kellen Fox. Both very well known in the traditional world of dance in the Indian country. That particular dance is called a chicken dance. And it's in one sense, it's a mating type of dance. As you go out and you watch the prairie chickens and how they take care of themselves and they perform in front of each other. It's a mimic from that. And the bustle itself, or the feathers in the back that they carry, each one of them have a certain meaning according to their family heritage, according to their traditional tribe, and according to their transfer of what they've learned from their dancers before them. So they're teachers, you might say. And so here, just one of the many that you'd see at any one of the powwows in today's society. And so next we have, we're actually going by the music of what we're doing. Because that first one was a chicken dance. And so we're just going to wait to see what we hear. Okay. Traditional.
Traditional?
If I can have you stand there just for a minute. Wanted to just describe a little bit about her dancing outfit. And again, I wanted to get back to the chicken dances. We have a little bit of time. But starting out, the dresses and the shirts and where we come from are the same as our teepees as far as the designs that are painted on them. So the bottom of the dress represented the earth they stand on. The top of the dress with the beadwork on it represented the universe above us. And so in this case, the stripes would represent the Milky Way, or we call the Wolf's Trail. And then in between that, from the waist down, we have the sky itself. In some cases, they would have little buttons there with buckskin strings hanging off of those, representing the falling stars coming from the universe to the earth. And the war bonnet itself, she was transferred this as a part of the Women's War Bonnet Society. In the Indian country, it's the women that are the most important because they're the life givers of all people. And so therefore, they're cherished and recognized as the leaders of who we are as a people. And in that sense, the male is secondary in most cases. But I wanted to, most of the plains and some of the plateau tribes have this style of war bonnet. Spokane, I think Colville, Flathead, Coeur d'Alene, I think might have those, and then Blackfeet with this stand-up bonnet. They have different names for them, but this is made out of what we call a striped golden eagle. And as you start to really understand the patterns of the feathers and the patterns of the dance, you start to be able to read the individuals of what they're offering in their teaching and what they're showing you. And this is from heritages handed down that goes to their mother and their father, their grandfather and grandmother on both sides of the family, down to their family songs on their mom's side and family songs on their father's side. So just wanted to give you a little bit of insight of that to help you understand a little bit more about what's happening with the dance. Now we have these two young ladies over here. There's a third one. Oh. Okay, come on out. Jingle. One's a jingle dress dancer, and the other is a fancy dance. The jingle dress is the one with the gold, the one that came out here first. And that vision for those ladies on the eastern side of the United States, is where this dance originated from, was a vision of doctoring people, a vision of taking care of the people that needed healing. And so this is one of the dances that they had. Traditionally, they would hold tobacco in one hand and the other hand in the air, signifying the offerings that they're given for the gifts that they received. I'll just wait for the music. Okay, Susie. Susie's a traditional fancy dancer. It's almost two different styles. In a fancy dance in this style, there's a northern style fancy where they carry this shawl over their arm and they dance, with a straight dance with a long dress. And the more contemporary is with the shawl where they twirl. And sometimes it's been considered or compared to a butterfly, the way a butterfly would move. And so the good thing that to recognize is that the energy it takes to do these dances, it might be a 1-minute song, but it's an equivalent to running a couple of 100 yards, maybe 300 or 400 yards as fast as you possibly can in that very short song. And that's what you feel. And sometimes when these people here, dancers here, will do this for 4 days, 3 days in a row, all weekend, all day long. And that's when they get to travel and go to all the different powwows that we finally get to do again. So here we go, Susie. Okay, now we have our traditional dancer by the name of Mark Ramos. And so we'll have him come down and he'll be doing a couple dances here. Actually, he's one of the coordinators of this, I believe, correct?
What's that?
One of the coordinators?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You want to say anything?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Ramos. I work here for Adult Basic Education, so we're just down the hall, workforce transitions. So the last time I danced was when I was a student here in '95. I graduated, and so that's like 27 years ago was the last time I danced. And it was actually when his daughter was, I was the president of Native American Student Organization, and his daughter, Idella Dolly Rattler, was the vice president of Nassau. So I was unexpected to dance with them, but I'm glad they called me out. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the dances that he's going to be doing, one is, I believe, is a duck and dive. It's a traditional song that came from the Plateau people. And it's spread out through Indian country. So I've seen it done in Denver, I've seen it done in Florida, California, Phoenix. And so it's spread out a lot coming from this area. And it's a warrior's dance, and so I'm going to go ahead and let Mark go ahead and show you the dance himself, and he'll be doing, I think, 2 songs. So he'll be going along with this video, which would be nice.
What I wanted to share about this song, the duck and dive comes from the Nez Perce tribe, the Nimimpoo from Idaho. And it comes from the war of 1877 when the army was fighting with Chief Joseph and they were running. I think they had 5 battles. And this battle occurred at the Battle of Big Hole in Montana. They caught the camp at sleep. They attacked at dawn. So they were using a cannon, firing it down onto the village. So the warriors had to take out those cannons that were fired on them. So the song is symbolic to that. So according to the story that I heard, there was a warrior that was close enough to see when they were getting ready to fire the cannon. So he'd blow his eagle bone whistle, letting them know to get ready to duck. And then during the song, you heard the drum. They struck it hard, and that symbolized a cannon shot, which is when they would dive for cover. So that's how the song came about, duck and dive. So you'll see the dancers go over during that cannon shot. I know there's another tribe out there who says it comes from them. I don't know which one it was. But the story I know, it's from the Nez Perce and from the Battle of 1877. So I wanted to share that with you. And I thought it would, instead of me just dancing to it, to have it up on the big screen so you could see like the full effect. When you have that many dancers on the floor, you can feel the energy. Even a dancer coming Native American or your First Nations from Canada, you still feel that power from our songs, from our dances, from our youth, elders, all different components of our culture. So this was at Toppenish Memorial Weekend, so in May, on the Yakima Reservation. And they actually had, the night before, on Saturday, a duck and dive special for the women's veterans, because that song is typically sang for traditional, men's traditional, or veterans. So I just wanted to share that with you. So So thank you.
Mahalo. Black Bear. All right. What we're going to do from this point is we're going to do a intertribal with all the dancers, and then we're going to have Lacey do the closing for this particular program. And so we have a few minutes here. We're going to go ahead and, as soon as we get a song, we'll go ahead and start the intertribal with all the dancers. And it's good to have these dances available because these guys travel. And when I used to travel a lot, these powwows, Tuesday and Wednesday was my weekend. And Thursday was camp day. Basically, Friday, Saturday, Sunday was work day, where you actually went out and danced. And then Monday was taking your camp down, and Tuesday and Wednesday, you had to do what you wanted to do. Yeah, I was usually going to the next celebration traveled from, what's a good one, Albuquerque to Lethbridge, Alberta. But you notice the traditional dancer had a different type of a bustle than the chicken dancers. And that varied by tribe. Traditionally, it was the chicken dance style bustle, in most cases, across Indian country. And then there was an individual by the name of Russell Gillette, came out of Newtown, North Dakota, wore this, what we call a full wing bustle, and took first place everywhere he went. And so it became a trend across Indian country. But I remember that when that first came out, I had the opportunity to dance with that gentleman a couple times, and so it was an awesome performer. We're just waiting for the music. Whenever you get the gift of gab, sometimes it just get carried away.
Just a second, Gordon's coming back.
Okay, so just to catch up just a little bit before we have Lacey do the closing, we were talking about the chicken dance, that story. The question was asked, what is that about? And it's individuals coming back from a war. Their bustle basically tells the story of that battle. The feathers on the tail as they come into the battle itself, and the torn feathers and the good feathers all mixed up in one bunch with the battle itself, and the two extending feathers coming out, and sometimes they had wounded warriors that made it out of that battle. The trail of the plumes. So we never get lost in anything that we're doing. We always know where we're going. We always know where we come from. And it gets down into our heritage of who we are as people. Who do we represent? And this is Heritage Month. And so it's important to remember our moms and our dads, our grandmothers and our grandfathers, and the songs they gave us, the dances they gave us, the history they gave us of our traditional heritage of family. And it's like each one of us sitting in this room, our heritage is different because of that influence of our parents. And none of us are the same in that sense. But on the other hand, what I've learned traveling around the Indian country and around this world is that there's only one creator. Many, many different languages, but only one creator. And that makes us unified in the sense that we do understand what's important about this heart of the unconditional love and trust we have for ourselves and our families, who's given to us by our mothers and our fathers. So with that, I want to pass this on over to Lacey to do the closing.
Hello, hello. Buena. Hello, everybody. I'm back. So, before I start, we're going to do a little quiz and see if you guys retained any sign language. So who can show me the greeting? Ha, ha, ha. Okay. Who can show me you are looking good? Thank you, guys are so kind. So kind. Okay. So I was going to do the Lord's Prayer in sign language for you earlier, so we'll do it as a closing instead. And thank you very much.
Christina, did you want to say anything since you're one of the main folks that got this together?
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing this beautiful day with us, and I just feel so touched and warm, and I want to cry just that we have this harmony together, and for teaching us so much as an elder and as a voice of wisdom. So just thank you. And I want to thank the NASO members. Heidi Espina's here. She helped us out. Sithu, our president, Cheyenne Gorno, and our vice president, Kendra Ferguson. They also have classes, so they can't be here, but I just want to honor them as well. And also, I want to invite Dr. Brockbank would like to say a few words, so I want to invite him up here for a second. We did already.
Okay. Okay. So thank you. For those of you who don't know, my name is Kevin Brockbank. I'm the president here at Spokane Community College, and just want to make a couple comments here. First of all, I just want to thank each and every one of the dancers who took time out today to come here and share this with us. Especially Mark Ramos, one of our own, who came out of retirement after 27 years today. And then one other comment I want to make is just, Christina said that you did do the land acknowledgement statement before begin this event. And just, I want to go beyond the land acknowledgement statement and just say this too. Because we are in the traditional lands of the indigenous people here, it's not only just acknowledgement that we're here, but we as an institution have a responsibility to make sure that we understand the true history and culture of the indigenous people who were the original occupants of this property. And that not only means that we become better as an institution, but hopefully we become better at serving our indigenous students in that process as well. So these things like we had today are really important for us as a college to get better at understanding the true culture and history of these people. So thank you. Everybody ran off. So I'll let you.
Sorry, I missed that last bit. I just wanted to catch our beautiful dancers today and have them come out on stage so that we can give them a standing ovation for sharing this time with us today. So please come on.
I was going to just share real quick that when I was dancing, and you might have seen me tugging up my britches, I missed the belt loop, so they're about ready to hit the floor. And I just saw a video where a gal was dancing and she was doing a side step, and the shorts she was wearing, her spandex shorts, came down, but she finished her song. And Jesse thought I was getting winded when we were out there dancing, but it was because my belt loop was coming loose. Actually, it's starting to fall again. So, but thank you for having us. We really enjoyed coming here and sharing our culture with you folks. So have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd like to just say in closing that my name is Leon Radler. Nastus Nastaki Khan from Aspapa Pipikani from the Blackfeet Nation. Had taught here mid-90s, I believe, a while back, and then went ahead and came out of Gonzaga. I was there for quite a few years, and then down to Arizona. But the educational world, as we talk about it, these type of things that we learned today about who we are as a people is enriching to each and every one of us as we travel around, because we might have the opportunity to be in that world, and we have a little bit of insight to what it's all about. Thank you very much.
So first, I just want to welcome everybody to our Native American Heritage Day event. Thank you for coming. We are just so blessed to have this space that honors Native American culture and heritage. I'm going to start with our Native land acknowledgement for the community colleges of Spokane. So we are honored to acknowledge that the community colleges of Spokane and our main campuses for Spokane Falls and Spokane Community College are located on the traditional and sacred homelands of the Spokane tribe. We also provide services in a region that includes the traditional and sacred homelands of the Confederated Tribes of the Caldwell Reservation, the Coeur d'Alene Tribe, and the Kalispel Tribe. We pay our respect to tribal elders, both past and present, as well as to all Indigenous people today. This land holds their cultural DNA, and we are honored and grateful to be here on their traditional lands. We give thanks to the legacy of the original people and their descendants and pledge to honor their stewardship and values. So please take a moment to think about the native land that you are blessed to be upon. In my ESL classes, we have a few musicians who'd like to share music from Ukraine. They've been studying Native American studies, and they just wanted to take a moment to thank the local tribes and the land that we live on. So they're going to share that. And Gordon, he's helping us with the technology. He's a big support, and we just thank him for being here. Thank you, Maria. I just wanted to share a little bit about what she wrote. She wrote a compilation of different Ukrainian national songs. She wrote the piece herself. So that was just really beautiful, and thank you for sharing that. Okay, Aaron, we're just gonna do a test quickly before our next musician. Can you talk?
You asking for me too?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Okay, now go over here. To this, not to that, it's to the speaker for this, wherever it is, it's not there. We have to turn the speaker up on the.
Just a second.
Okay, yeah, turn it.
Okay. Try to talk. Try to say something now, Aaron.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's much better. Okay.
Perfect, perfect.
Okay.
There you go.
And we have one more musician who'd like to share, and then we'll have you go ahead and I'll give you a quick introduction, and we'll let you tell us about your journey.
Sure.
Okay, Angela. This is going to be tricky.
You need your PowerPoint too, don't you?
Oh, that's later.
Got it? Okay.
No, it's okay. So do you need this? Yes. I hope this is going to be okay. Ready?
Я просто тобі хочу сказати дякую за те, що ти зі мною назавжди дякую. Ти сонце, ти світло, коли я тінь, ти вода, коли я спрагла, коли я в пустелі, і ти мені так потрібен завжди. Я просто тобі хочу сказати дякую за те, що ти зі мною назавжди дякую. Я дякую. Ти сила, фортеця, коли я слабкість, ти воля і свобода, коли я в полоні, і ти мені так потрібен завжди. Я просто тобі хочу сказати дякую за те, що ти зі мною назавжди. Дякую. Я просто тобі хочу сказати дякую. І за те, що ти зі мною назавжди. Я дякую. І за те, що ти зі мною назавжди. Я просто тобі хочу сказати дякую. За те, що ти зі мною назавжди. Дякую. Я дякую. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. All right, welcome to our speaker, Aaron Carapella. He is from the Cherokee Nation, and he also is a cartographer, which is he's a self-taught cartographer, making maps from the pre-Columbian times. And I'm just going to let him give us more details about him, and we're so thankful that he could be with us here today. Welcome. Let me make sure that your sound is up. I think you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Christina, for the introduction. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah, great.
Okay, great. And thank you to the college for inviting me to talk about the maps I make and the journey that I've been on for probably about 25, 30 years on these maps, and even more back there if you count my activism as a youth. I'm going to do an introduction speaking about land acknowledgements. I'll go ahead and I'm sitting here in the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, surrounded by several 100,000 Cherokee people in every direction. And there's about 20,000 speakers of Cherokee left here. I speak it proficiently, always trying to get more and more fluent, but I'm going to do a greeting here in Cherokee. Sio doyuda diginali. Aaron Carapella da Wadoa Alechiyawiya. I just kind of introduced myself in the language culturally appropriate. Since I was about 7 or 8, I would go to powwows as a kid. I grew up actually in California, even though my family's from here in Eastern Oklahoma. And as a kid, I would find these maps with maybe 20 to 30 tribes on them, even going to powwows or Native American museums. And I was always kind of intrigued by why so many tribes were left off those maps, even when I was going to specifically Native events. A lot of times it'd be the famous tribes that we hear about, you know, the Sioux and the Comanche and Cherokee. And I knew growing up in California, there were lots of small unrecognized tribes that were always missing off maps like that. And so it just kind of intrigued me and kind of bothered me as a little kid about why that was. So I kind of filed it away in my brain and said, you know, maybe I'll see one in the future. Well, the future kept coming, and as a teenager, I finally just created one and put some poster boards on my wall and used some people I knew from local tribes as references to kind of help me spell their tribal name. And then I decided I also want to use the traditional name that tribes call themselves, because those are always left off of maps. And so my goal kind of became twofold. It was using the correct names and also putting tribes on the map that had never been placed on a map before. Even then, I thought somewhere deep in the bowels of some museum, there must be a series of maps like this already have been made back in the 1800s or something. Finally, about 10 or 11 years ago, I copywrote my first map of just the lower 48 contiguous states. And I had the Library of Congress do a thorough search to see if the concept I was trying to copyright had been done before. And they came back with that it had not been. So if someone has done a similar project before, it's something they haven't ever published or brought to light. Either way, in the last 10 years, that map of the lower 48 has grown from about 550 tribes when I originally published it. And that includes like what we would call nations broken down into tribes, sub-tribes, bands, sometimes even villages, if that makes sense. But that number has now grown to about double. It's about 1,050 tribes just in that area. Over time, people would say, well, why did you stop at the colonial US-Canadian border, the Mexico border? Why don't you keep going? And so over time, I felt like that was important. And now I have created maps of the entire Western Hemisphere, a total of about almost 4,500 tribal peoples, historic peoples that were here at contact. And I have criteria for what tribes can be on the map. Basically, any people that had a name for themselves in their own language or looked at themselves as a culturally independent group. I can get into that deeper if need be, but basically it's kind of interesting when you get up into like Washington or Southern California, where a lot of tribes were culturally, villages were culturally connected to each other, but didn't necessarily have a name for their overall people. It was more like when they introduced themselves, my name is such and such from the village of what have you. Not necessarily I am. Today it's very easy to say things like, I am a Cherokee or I am a Lakota. But back then things were a little different, because in most tribes you recognized your immediate village or town first as your people, maybe even your clan, and calling yourself by this nationalistic overarching term was not as prevalent as you would see today. That's a very general description, so that's not true in all cases. But if we're looking back at the way historically our Native ancestors looked at things, that's more of the way it generally was viewed. But at any rate, that was the impetus for my journey. Is I didn't find a map that really encompassed what I was looking for. Now I've created these maps that are more complete. They're never going to be perfect, and over time I've made mistakes even on my maps by maybe not placing tribes exactly centralized where they should be. So people have pointed that out for me. I've used the help of hundreds and hundreds of elders, cultural departments, scholars, history buffs, academics, national park resources, genealogy societies, any entity that can give me some type of proof of maybe a missing name that I have, maybe a people that merged with another people and don't exist as their own distinct entity anymore. There are still probably some missing nations off my maps, especially when you get down into South America. I just found some recently that I needed to add. Christina, let me know how much time I've got to as well, if I could, or if there's any questions.
Yeah, you have about, I think, 20 more minutes, and then we can take questions.
Okay, perfect. So I think it's really important to discuss the pre-contact population. I like to call my maps locations of tribes at contact instead of pre-contact, because that in itself is kind of a colonial term. Native people, there were, probably about 100 million people here in the Western Hemisphere at the time that Columbus arrived here, if we're going to use that as the litmus test. So at that time, our tribal people here did not look at themselves as being in pre-contact time, because we've been contacting each other through trade routes and just a very existence for probably 50 to 60,000 years here on this land. They keep carbon dating and finding archaeological evidence of further and further back for the existence of human beings here in this part of the world. And you know, I think it's important to point out that, for example, just in the lower 50 states, there were somewhere between 35, 40, 45 million people, give or take a little bit. By 1900, they estimate there were about 250,000 people that were reduced down from that original number. Today, we have about 3.2 million tribal members in the United States. But it's also important to point out that they, based on population statistics and demographic data stemming from the 1700s through today, we have an idea that there's probably between 12 to 15 million tribal descendants of tribes in the United States. So although we need to draw that distinction of, yes, tribal members have their own unique sovereign attachment and dual citizenship to tribes, there are millions and millions of descendants who fall through the cracks. I don't want to digress too much, but this is an important topic. Indigenous identity, you know, who is native and who is not, sometimes is in the eye of the beholder. If you go about 50 miles east of where I live, you go to Adair County, Oklahoma, which is the poorest county in Oklahoma. It's also where the last 15 or 20 monolingual Cherokee speakers live. There are still some speakers 500 years later that escaped boarding schools, or for some reason, one reason or another, do not speak English. They only speak Cherokee. There's whole communities in the hills out there and all over in these 14 counties where it's compounds or just people's houses where Cherokee is the only language that's spoken. And so if you look at the population, for example, of Cherokee people, just specifically Cherokee people, it went from probably 200,000 to 300,000 people at the time that the Pilgrims landed on the East Coast, down to by 1820, it probably went down to about 20,000 people. And then 5,000 of those people came here on the Trail of Tears, and then another 15 to 16,000 came on the Trail of Tears against their will about 20 years later. So there are a lot of, circling back to Indigenous identity, there are a lot of people who moved here but didn't settle within the 14 counties. And so when the United States government sent the Dawes Commission to enumerate the Cherokee people or the Creeks or the Choctaws or multiple different tribes out here, a lot of people deliberately did not want to be on that census. There had already been 10 or 11 censuses taken by the Cherokee Nation itself or by the Creek Nation on their own. And so by the time the government came out here, that Dawes Roll census of 1906 and 7 was very closely attached to forcing our tribal people to no longer live in communal lands and to take individual homesteads, and also attached to Oklahoma statehood. And Native people knew that at the time. So a lot of people either lived with outside of the 14 counties and could not enroll as a Cherokee, even if their ancestors were on every single roll before that. And at the same time, there were a lot of full-bloods, a lot of people from the Nighthawk Society, which were traditional people who were deliberately taking up the fences and doing damage against the government that was trying to put in place all of these divisions on our land here. So who is and who is not a native here in Oklahoma, a lot of it depends on what your ancestors were doing 100 years ago, whether or not they lived, maybe their family had moved a generation before that to Texas and they could not enroll anymore. So then maybe they came back in the 1920s and essentially had the same status as non-Indians in the state at that point. most people were enrolled, but then again, a lot of people were enrolled with incorrect blood quantums. If you were half or more of any tribe in Eastern Oklahoma, the government could put a proprietor over your affairs and essentially swindle you out of your 160 acres that you had been given or portions of anything you owned. So a lot of people would claim they were 3/8 native instead of half or full. So now a lot of descendants of those people have tribal cards with completely incorrect blood quantums. And in fact, I know very, very few people out of probably several thousand that I've met who have a tribal card here whose blood quantum CDIB percentage is actually accurate. It's almost unheard of. My wife is Choctaw and Cherokee, but you can only choose one tribe. So she went with the Choctaw Nation, and the Choctaws don't count the Cherokee blood. On top of that, she had an ancestors her grandpa was half, but he was only listed as a quarter. So then it goes, her mom's card is wrong, her card is wrong, and our kid's card is wrong. So it's Indian identity or Native identity is very clear. I think it's after all the years of making these maps and traveling and meeting lots and lots of people, going to lots of historical and spiritual places across this land. My feeling is what makes you indigenous is having native blood. And that's about the crux of it. You can be as traditional as you can be, possibly, or not traditional at all. But if you do have that DNA, then that's our ancestral birthright that we can claim. It's great. It's great to have a card, and it's great that those benefits exist. But that card in itself does not define indigenous identity alone. It's part of the grander scheme. And in places like South America and Central America, where those blood quantum pedigree charts don't exist for indigenous people, and almost everyone is native, including tens of millions of full bloods across tribes in Latin America. That is what makes you indigenous in those communities, which many I've been to as well, is whether or not you speak your language, you live in a town full of people from your nation, whether or not you identify that way or not. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I want to also discuss the interesting parallels between Washington State and Oklahoma. These two states that we're in are two of the states with the highest native populations in the United States. We can also count New Mexico, Arizona, South Dakota, Montana. Those are other ones that have upwards of 10 to 15, 20% native population. Here in Oklahoma, officially it's 11% of the citizens here are tribal members, but about 20% of people that live here are descendants of tribes. So I'd say it's about 1 out of 5 people here have a connection somehow, whether or not it's memory or cultural, to their nation. And I think in Washington it's probably under 10%, but it's pretty high as well. When I went up there about 10 years ago to Whidbey Island and some other really beautiful places, Seattle, and visited the Swinomish, I think I'm saying this right, the Swinomish tribe, and the Tulalip and Yakima, and quite a few nations up there, and saw that beautiful land and realized, it really showed me why the tribes up there fought so hard to hold on to what they have up there. And that's also an important element of indigenous connection is directly to the land. And that's what a lot of tribes in Washington, thankfully, still have, is some connection, even if it's a small part of their traditional territory, but a direct connection to the land of their ancestors. Whereas here in Oklahoma, we have a big disconnect, because about five of the 39 federally recognized tribes here in Oklahoma actually have a historical attachment to this land. And those would be the Caddo, Comanche, Kiowa, Apache, Wichita. There might be another one or two. But for the most part, the tribes that wound up here in Oklahoma come all the way from, there's one that came from California, several that come from Ontario, Canada, or Quebec, Canada, New York, all throughout the Southeast, all throughout the Midwest. There's really kind of a mishmash of tribes that wound up here from every direction. And I have maps that I've created showing which tribes came to Oklahoma from different areas and different time eras, maps showing different time eras of Oklahoma and how it went from Indian territory to a state. But there was a real eye-opening experience I had when I went up to Washington in seeing tribes practicing their traditions directly on their ancestral land versus here. First of all, a very small percentage of people here, tribal people here, still practice their traditional religions and still speak their languages. That there's a big distinction between tribes like, let's say, the Navajo or the Anishinaabe, these big tribes that still live on their land where they have still 20% to 50% language maintenance. Whereas here, only, I think it's 1% of Cherokee kids are growing up with their Cherokee language. In the Choctaw Nation, which my wife is from, it's less than 1%. And then about 95% of tribal people here in eastern Oklahoma are Baptist Christians. So only maybe 2 to 3% of our tribal members still practice our stomp dance religion and go to stomp dance ceremony and have that connection. And I think from all of my studies and traveling around, I kind of feel like it's a tangible thing. You can see that the tribes that had been removed from their homelands have lost so much more. Because essentially, it's the Cherokee Nation sitting on top of ancestral Osage land or Caddo land. It's not Cherokees on Cherokee land. So if we go back to the eastern band of Cherokees that still exists in North Carolina, it's a small band of Cherokees that escaped the Trail of Tears and hid up in the mountains. And today there's about 20,000 of them left. They hold on to the language more. Their religious understanding is more intact. They still have the names of the local mountains, and they still know the names of the villages that all of our ancestors, or the towns that they came from. Whereas if you ask the average Cherokee here in Oklahoma, what is your clan? What towns did your ancestors come from? Or even what region of the old Cherokee Nation did your people come from? A lot of people cannot answer that question. Back in the original territory, it's easier to answer because people say, right over that mountain is where my people came from. And so a lot of times the Cherokee Nation will send delegations of youth back to the Eastern Band to make that connection. So thankfully there's a bridging that's happening. But what do you do if you're like the Potawatomi, the citizen Potawatomi Nation of Oklahoma? They are one of 14 Potawatomi communities that were displaced all throughout the Midwest. The southernmost one, so they're originally from the Michigan, Chicago area, northern Indiana. They were forced on a series of trails of death is what they call it in their language, all the way down through the Midwest, eventually to Oklahoma. They have communities in Canada as well that had fled to Canada. So now they have 14 different communities, all whom have lost most of their speakers, and the speakers that are left all speak Potawatomi in a different dialect. So now when they are relearning their language, it's more difficult because they've just been culturally dispersed. So those are some of the things that happened that I've discovered and seen firsthand. and heard a lot of elders talk about how it's easy to say connect back to your culture, but sometimes we have to decide, do we choose this dialect? Even though I know my ancestors spoke another one, but this is the only access I have to this elder who speaks this one. Is this close enough for me to tap into? And then there's all these feelings of guilt, am I doing this correctly? So working backwards from this colonization is not easy, living in the modern world. Obviously, a lot of us too are mixed with other cultures, which is another thing. So I strongly believe in honoring our full blood communities that are the culture bearers, that, we have those sources to go back to, and they've retained the most amount of knowledge and information. We're lucky, those of us that come from tribes that still have full blood communities, that we can go back to those people and say, what can we learn, And there's a whole series of protocols to that too. You can't just go and announce yourself as a stranger to people that you're asking for sensitive information that they've had to hold on to. They need to know who you are. You need to bring them a gift. Usually it's tobacco, or sometimes in the tribes here, you bring them elders some cedar or some juniper, or you just bring them some groceries. There's a lot of poor Native people here, and if you show up with some some groceries or even just some goodwill, they'll open themselves up in their life to you. I have a little 8-year-old boy named Sequoia, and I take him with me when I go into these communities. And I've been teaching him Cherokee since he was first born, and it's something that he knows it's there, but he battles with, Cherokee or playing Minecraft on my video game today, So it's a real battle between these cultures, this neo-American culture of consumption and what's in it for me today versus what's in it for my people for the long haul, from way back historically and also into the future. So I'm trying to instill those ideas into him, and some of the best ways I've been able to do that is just to be quiet and take him around some of these Native communities where he can just sit there and watch. Just a quick funny story. My son got his traditional name from an elder here, and the elder was was praying over him in Cherokee, and it was a very beautiful thing to watch. And my son was like maybe 2.5 or 3 years old, and he turned around and he said to me and his mom, he said, why is he speaking like a minion? So that was his closest connection. But at any rate, so it's seeping in there, So those of you that are relearning your culture or teaching it to your children or your nieces and nephews, we can only do our best. We can only relearn what we can at the pace that makes sense in the middle of jobs and driving to work every day and doing what we need to do to survive. But I really appreciate everyone listening to the things that I've had to say. And I think Christina may be ready for some opening it up for some questions, which I'd love to answer.
Well, I just want to say thank you for sharing, and thank you for, explaining just some more Indigenous culture from your perspective, and then also just about how we get to relearn and recapture different elements on our journey, right, to revitalize the communities that have been marginalized. So, and I think if we could just make Minecraft with Cherokee, we'd be good to go, right?
Yeah.
With different Indigenous languages.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do want to take a moment just to say that I did, our club got maps on the table. These are examples of maps that Aaron Carapella has made, has spent his life journey providing for us as a guide. So we got the Northwest Nations one, and then we have the American Indian Reservations and Tribal Jurisdictions, those two maps. And I didn't know if you wanted to share anything about those maps that now that our students have some of them in their hands.
Okay, yeah, that's good. I hadn't mentioned it. I also create current maps showing modern reservations across the United States. And I don't think those postcards show it, but if you go to my website and look at the larger actual posters that I have, I've now updated those to show the traditional names of the tribes that wound up on each reservation. Because a lot of teachers, especially in like elementary and middle school, they'll put the Native American nations poster right next to the reservations poster and compare and contrast, why are there over 1,000 nations here and only 300 reservations here? How did these people wind up making it to, who made it to where? And so that opens it up for a discussion of which tribes were able to continue surviving, which ones merged, which ones have reservations where maybe there are 20 tribes on one reservation versus some tribes are just one nation on their piece of land. And I'm about to create a map of the entire Western Hemisphere, showing all of the different countries that have reserves in countries like Ecuador, Brazil, Costa Rica. There's a lot of nations across Latin America who have set aside land to stay indigenous, obviously in Canada too. So I'm going to have a side-by-side of my Western Hemisphere map with what's left of that for our Native people.
That's wonderful. And I just want to leave the mic open for people who have questions. If you'd like to come up here and ask them, it'll be easier for Aaron to hear them. Or people on Zoom, you're welcome to ask a question also.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you well.
Excellent. Aaron, thank you for your presentation today. I am very moved by your project. And I can't wait to go to your website and check out the maps. Actually, my question was, how do I do that? But it sounds like you have a website, so I'll go there. To me, it's really important that I'm obviously a white girl. I'm a white privileged girl, but I grew up next to a reservation here in Washington State. And also my dad spent 40 years with a Comanche Indian from Texas. Okay. And so I have a lot of interwoven, traditions from her, and just a huge amount of love for indigenous, both just for people. I really just love people. But what is important to me is that I be a part of the reconciliation of what really has happened with what we were fed in school. I don't really have a question, I guess, because I really was going to ask you about your maps, but I just wanted to tell you that what you're doing is extraordinary. It's very, very important, and I really enjoyed your presentation. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thanks so much. Thanks a lot. My just a spin-off of that, my grandpa that was from Oklahoma, he was born in Lawton, Oklahoma, which is right in the Comanche Nation. So he grew up he was a Cherokee who went to school with all Comanche kids. He was the lone Cherokee in the middle of all that. So he has some interesting stories about Comanches. Oh, and my website too. Can you still hear me? Yes. My website for anyone that would like to check out my work is tribalnationsmaps.com. Oh. It should also be on the little postcards for those of you that are actually sitting there in the auditorium. Should be in the corner there. But yeah, there's some free resources there. A lot of resources for teachers. There's also maps you can just zoom in on. People don't have to buy my stuff. You can also zoom in on each map just to find like which tribes are around certain areas for land acknowledgements and things like that.
Aaron, hi, this is Molly, and I just wanted to again say so much thank you and how grateful I am that I got to be here. and observe you. And I wanted to share that I grew up in Othello, below the Moses Lake and the Wenatchee tribe and the Wanapum. And my mother grew up in this state and spent her whole life. She just died and she was 94. And she spent her whole life studying native tribes, and she taught in our town, our little town, every third grader about the Yakima, the Wenatchee, the Spokane, the tribes. And so I feel like she's here. And I feel like she's really grateful for someone like you. So thank you for what you're doing. I can't quite figure out how you can do it, but you're doing it, right?
I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Yeah, what an honor.
Yeah, I appreciate what you did for all those kids too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Oh, we have another person coming to ask a question.
Okay.
Yeah, fine. You don't. Yeah, sure.
My name is Barnetta Bindewald. I'm also white, but I grew up in eastern South Dakota, and tribal issues have always been close to my heart. And I want to thank you for your presentation. I have a friend whose mother was full-blood Native American, and he has tried to find her ancestry. He was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and I still can't pronounce the name of the tribe accurately, but I don't see anything in Illinois or
This is just reservations, but the tribal, the maps, so they have much more. This is just a small postcard. So if we go to tribal, it'll be bigger.
so the tribalnationsmaps.com.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
would he be able to go to your website and ask you specific questions about his mother's heritage?
Yeah.
Because she is enrolled in the tribe there, and she was full blood, and so he has he's got Native American in him. So
Mhm.
but I don't know how to help him.
Yeah, I help people a lot with that because a lot of people see my maps and ask if I can help with genealogy. I've helped some people actually reconnect with their tribe and get enrolled with their tribe, or I've helped them just narrow down what tribe they probably come from. It's so hard nowadays if going, with the way records are very meticulous now, but they weren't maybe in the 1800s to track it all the way back. Those maps too, if you look at the other one that's not the reservation map, if you look at, you'd have to have my postcard of the Midwest probably to see the St. Louis area. Christina could probably explain that, but on my website, if you go there, I have a map just called Tribal Nations of Missouri, and I've got one that's like, for each state. So you can zone in on each state, and then sometimes I'm missing tribes too. So if there's one that's anyone, has any suggestions for anything at all, you could always message me or call me. But yeah, I'll help you if I can.
Yeah, that would be great. Also, we have the maps out there on a billboard, like of the whole United States. And
Okay.
also in the Center for Inclusion and Diversity, they have the big map framed in that space too. So you're welcome to go there and see the maps there. But feel free to take pictures of those there. I mean, just to see for yourself if you have a connection. But also, Aaron has spent a lot of time, and I'm just really happy that we have some maps there. But yeah. Great, thank you.
So it wouldn't be appropriate to ask for his phone,
Probably not.
but you could, whatever. he
Yeah.
said, call.
Yeah.
Can I ask just one more question?
Sure.
I mispronounced the name of his mother's tribe. horribly. Are you familiar with the tribe that might sound like Cahokia?
Yeah, Cahokia.
Ah.
Cahokia, yeah. That's a band of the Illini Nation, which the state of Illinois was named after. You'll see that on the bigger map if you look at it. The Illini people. There's some descendants of that tribe here in Oklahoma.
Okay. And could you say the name of that? Could you spell the name?
Cahokia?
Yeah.
Cahakia. Cahokia. Cahokia.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I had to think
With
about
that
that.
in my brain, I will not do the other again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
You too.
For your
Thank you so
research.
much. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions and interaction today. And this is a recording, so it'll be available on the Spokane Community College YouTube for later reference also. And we just want to really thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being a part of our Native American Heritage Day and just sharing your wisdom and your love for revitalizing the communities.
No problem. Thank you very much for the invitation.